Let us take the mickey out of CNN, folks, because this morning I read an amusing article from The Spectator that Don Lemon is the dinosaur of CNN. Now, if you don't watch CNN, because most of my audience I think is British, and CNN is a steaming pile of wank whose only merit isn't being the punchline, to call it a shit show would be rather generous. The last 6 years, they have utterly decimated their credibility. And by the way, am I the only one that finds it amusing that his surname is a fruit and he's gay? Screw you guys, that's funny. If Lee Mack can joke about Elton Flatley named after the two campus men in showbiz, and Johnny Wilkinson after the two most masculine products you can find, you can bet your bollocks I am going to make fun of this. And if there are those that in the previous video found my accent not quite compatible with my sense of humor, oh, do I beg your pardon. Please do forgive me if my auditory decimation of CNN and their staff does not include my flexing a dexterous variety of my vast English vocabulary. We shouldn't be too surprised a network with homosexual men that gulp Trump's nutsack between every breath they took would also milk his dick for every damn dollar they could get. The big surprise was, of course, that the most frequent offender of that particular crime was Brian Stelter. Turns out he's not much of a reliable source, neither for factual journalism or increasing revenue. Unbelievably, or maybe not rather, tragically, he's managed to get a stint at Harvard for, and I'm quoting here, Stelter will convene a series of discussions about threats to democracy and the range of potential responses from the news media at the Ivy League school in Cambridge, Massachusetts. If you ever needed any proof that the universities are a hopeless institution utterly ruined by power-hungry corruption, there is a good piece of evidence for you. Makes Moldbug's idea of driving a tank through Harvard Yard seem not all that far-fetched, actually. Because when Jeff Zucker ran the place, who got fired on the account of being shite for shekels, he seemed to have no problem turning the place into a clown show with this kind of shit. And when the new guy, Chris Licht, came in, he seemed hell-bent on purging the place of its leftist stench. But anyway, back to Don Lemon. I've wondered before about the kind of people and personalities who get involved in the news business. How many are true believers of the bollocks they spout, and how many are only pushing it for a paycheck? And how long can a mind subsist in this propagandistic writing cesspool before you yourself start falling prey to its allure? Because on face value, it seems Don is of the former variety, as we can see in this amusing clip here.
Can you tell us what this is and what effect climate change has on this phenomenon?
Well, we can come back and talk about climate change at a later time. I want to focus on the here and now. We think the rapid intensification is probably almost done. There could be a little bit more intensification as it's still over the warm waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico, but I don't think we're going to get any more rapid intensification. If you look here, you can actually see, pretty interesting for your viewers, you can actually see a second eye wall forming around the inner eye wall, and that's basically the second eye wall has overtaken the original eye wall, and that should arrest development.
So listen, I'm just trying to get that. You said you want to talk about climate change, but what effect does climate change have on this phenomenon that is happening now? Because it seems these storms are intensifying. That's the question here.
I don't think you can link climate change to any one event.
Okay.
On the whole, on the cumulative, climate change may be making storms worse, but to link it to any one event, I would caution against that.
Okay. Well, listen, I grew up there, and these storms are intensifying. Something is causing them to intensify.
Geez, I can't figure out why he got dropped to a morning hour slot. Can you? So much for trusting the science when an actual scientist turns up and schools you and wrecks your bullshitting leftist narrative now, isn't it? Oh, but we have to make an important distinction here between the science and actual science. The science is a trademark slogan for bullshit that's funded by government, peddled by government to come up with any cockamamie excuse to increase the size and scope of, you guessed it, more government. Actual science, on the other hand, that involves the scientific method that would debunk the fear-mongering bullshit that's peddled by the state, government tends to not favor that kind of data. Ooh, I wonder why. It seems to be a mystery. Oh, and by the way, the guy in the clip, Jamie Rome, received both a bachelor's and master's in meteorology, joined the National Hurricane Center in 1999, I believe, became a hurricane specialist in 2006, worked for both Bush and Obama, which seems to me to prove more substantial than Don's fucking anecdotal claims of I lived there once. Which is funny because if you look at his Wikipedia page, for all the credibility that has, it says he grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, not frickin' Florida. As far as I'm aware, he has never lived in Florida once in his entire damn life. It seems dementia is contagious these days, running in the Democratic variety. Oh, and for fun, let's debunk Don's claims of these storms are intensifying, as if that had any credibility to begin with, but anyway, I went to find a list of Florida's worst hurricanes on record. Here's the years. 1910, 06, 48, 09, 65, 19, 60, 28, 2017, and then back to 1935, which I think was America's worst hurricane on record. Does anyone else notice the pattern? It jumps up and down in years with every progression. So from 10 down to 6, then back up to 48, down to 9, so on and so forth. It's not a linear progression of intensity at all, which would lead me to conclude it's not fucking climate change. It seems to be, and I'm about to blow minds here, random. Now, the reason I wanted to do this, aside from the fact that it's funny, is because when something like this happens, the consensus would be, oh, that guy will never be on CNN ever again. Normally, I would agree. However, in this instance, I'm going to disagree, and here is why. In the wake of Trump's less than gracious exit from the White House, shall we say, CNN has hemorrhaged ratings and money. The catastrophic collapse of CNN has been quite the spectacle to witness. Now, the reason for this is quite simple to understand. Aside from the fact that during the previous administration, they essentially sold their soul and sense to become the Trump-bashing grifters of the legacy media, and Trump made them a lot of money in the process. The trick is, there is a certain element of cathartic galvanizing in punching up, hitting those in power, regardless of if it makes any sense at all. Just whining hatred for the sake of tribal identity or sport, which is what the left did during Trump's tenure. The animosity was not based on any kind of policy or competence. It was largely based on what the man said on Twitter. This is why the United States has an international reputation for being fucking idiots, because they voted in, a creature that resembles much more Mr. fucking Magoo than a competent statesman. When the creature then you still simp for, the one you helped put into power, is flinging his shit everywhere, is a reigning hellfire of demonic malice, your continued support in the face of all reality will tank your credibility. This isn't just a sign of CNN, mind you. Look all over Western media, period. Anything that is remotely twinging with leftism is rapidly losing support. And Chris Licht, who runs CNN now, knows this, which is why he is purging CNN. And Don Lemon is the face of that previous paradigm, a remnant of the Trump derangement era that CNN is desperately trying to move past from. And this isn't the only recent stupid thing he's done either. Remember a while ago in the wake of the Queen's passing, being the typical leftist shithead that he is, he couldn't help himself but talk about reparations. And the scholar that he had on, Hilary Fordwich, who had clearly danced this jig before, explained in a textbook British manner the history of the slave trade in Africa. And Don, like all leftist shitheads when confronted with facts, ended the segment with this pathetic downbeaten whimper.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll continue to discuss in the future.
No, they won't. That woman's face, I can guarantee you, will forever give Don shell shock. It must have been a very traumatic, uncomfortable first-time experience for him. He's usually into getting dominated by men, but anyway. Moments like this is what makes CNN look like arse. And there's many people who think the only reason Don is still there is because he's gay and not white. But sure as hell he is not worth the hassle, and I will bet you Chris is looking for any reason to fire Lemon. He is on thin fucking ice, and when he does embarrassing shit like this, where he feels the need to plug his stupid narrative that makes his network go viral for all the wrong reasons, he is stacking the deck against himself. So Donnie the Dinosaur is indeed in a spot of trouble, and much like the real ones, it's only a matter of time before Donnie becomes just like them, extinct. And the sooner CNN decides to fire him, the better off the network will be. And that is all for today, and I will see you all next time.